Yvonne, on the text that went back and forth, was Sarah going to be on?
She says she was
And-
joining.
Okay.
So,
I just,
but maybe
with
we
this,
can get it started because we have 6 people in the group right now.
yeah, I just don't want to, we can't do anything with the name change without a quorum, and we don't have one.
Here she is.
Perfect. Oh, sorry. I'm on a new laptop and I am fumbling through everything. There we go. Gallery. There's everybody. Much better. As far as I can tell, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're good. We're good. Okay. All right, it's 7:02. Let's start the meeting. We have our special guests, our state representatives coming in around 7:15. So I wanted to make sure we could get our business done in advance of that. Christina Testa Buzzy, who is our chairwoman, is away on business, so she couldn't join us this evening. So I'll be chairing the meeting. With that, let's get started on our agenda. So we have our acceptance of the minutes from November 18th. Do I have a motion?
I move a motion.
Okay.
I
Does
have,
anybody have any?
yes, I have some edits. There, just my name is
Oh.
misspelled throughout.
Okay.
It's Rendon Garcia for the note takers, and I think it says like Garcia right now in some spaces.
We'll get that changed. Great. Any other changes or additions?
Yep.
Sharon?
Page 2, if we can remove Ms. Testa Buzzy from the Policy and Advocacy Committee. And it's also mentioned on page 3, if we can remove her at the bottom, take out Ms. Testa Buzzy. She's actually not on that policy committee. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or changes? Okay. Hearing none, motion to approve the minutes as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay. Next, public participation. Esther, do we have anybody? Esther, is there anybody in the waiting room to speak or no?
Nope. Everybody's
No?
here.
Okay. Great. So no public participation tonight. Okay, under old business is the ordinance committee presentation. We were on with them last month. They approved our name change. There was one follow-up comment from one of the common council members. So I'm going to just read that for you. In our existing language, it reads gender non-conforming. They're asking that we change it to read gender diverse, which the ordinance committee felt was more updated language. So that's what's before us tonight. With that approval, we'll go back to ordinance at, next Tuesday. They'll follow their process, which still is going to take a little bit. It has to go to public hearing. It has to go to common council. So we're still a little bit out as far as it being done. But we need to make this approval here for the steps to continue. So does anybody have any questions or any objections to that word change? Okay, can I have a motion to approve it, please, just so it's official for ordinance?
Motion to approve.
A second.
Sharon, second, all in favor? Aye, great, all right, thank you very much. We will move forward to ordinance. Just to keep you guys advised, we're gonna, once it goes back to ordinance, then it goes to public hearing, then it'll go to the full common council. Once it's truly approved, we're gonna have to make some changes to our bylaws to make sure that everything is updated, so it all reads smoothly. And if there's anything else we need to update that's come up along the way, that'll give us a chance to do so. So that's just something that's kind of coming down the pike to make you guys aware, and we'll keep you informed as it works its way through the process. Okay. Let's see. Bylaws. Okay. If anybody has any committee updates, perhaps we could get that squared away before we have our guests. Community outreach.
I don't think we have any updates.
Okay. How about policy? Any updates?
Yeah, I'll update real quick. So Emma, Yvonne, and myself sit on the new Legislative Advocacy Committee. In our first meeting, we invited the speakers that we're hearing tonight. And during our second meeting, I think there's a few things we want to do, which is identify some of the relationships that we need to have and the partnerships that we need to create. And we'll recommend some speakers. We want to also identify a process for us and how we want to move forward when we come up with bills that we want to support. So we want to make sure everybody's on board for the work that we do and the way that we prioritize it. And then we'll continue to research potential bills and bring them forward. That's our update.
Perfect. All right, great. Let's see. All right, that's everything on our agenda. So we're just kind of in limbo until our speakers hop on.
Shannon, you're so good. We got this moving quick, huh?
I know, I like it. I like an efficient meeting more than anything in this world. I like an efficient meeting.
Right.
This is great that they were able to come on so quick at the start of the session to really give us a insider view of what's going on.
Yeah. Big kudos to Sharon who reached out and they answered right away.
My pleasure. I also want to mention, while we have the time, for anybody, any of you that, are really passionate about a bill that's coming forward that aligns with the work that we're doing, please send me an email and we'll try to research it and get it, get on board with it, and send letters. So. Did our awards fall off the agenda?
Yeah, they're not on there, no.
Not on there? Okay.
Maybe in the meantime, while we are waiting, we can talk about the avoiding March. Were there any ideas floating around, women awareness month and the award ceremony that we are planning?
Can you repeat that? You're kind of breaking up.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Yes, I was wondering
that
if
was good.
there are any idea floating around the award ceremony in March for Women's Awareness Month.
I don't think we've done anything aside from say that we want to do it in March. I don't think we've made much progress past that.
I believe we discussed it in the outreach committee, and I think we were waiting on someone in that committee was reaching out for space. But I can't remember who that was. Shannon, were you there?
Sarah, I was in that meeting. I don't remember what we agreed on though. Where are we trying to do it?
Who was taking, I
Or-
don't remember who was taking notes. I think Christina has that, well, Christina was
Yeah, I
on.
think Christina. I'll send her an email I know she's right now, but just to get an update on that.
Yeah. and
Yeah, I get it. Guess at this point right now, it's just mainly working on the nomination process and getting people to do nominations. Because that may take a little bit of time, right? But we had the formula from last year, so it should be easy to move that forward and start promoting the fact that we're gonna have the award ceremony as well.
Here we go. Hi, Dominique. How are you?
Hey Shannon, how are you? Good evening.
Good. Nice to see you again.
I know I didn't get a chance to say hi. I saw you at City Hall, but it was nice to
No
see
problem.
you.
We were dividing and conquering with childcare, so I had to run and go get Emily. So
Makes complete sense.
yeah, it was it was really, really informative, and we appreciate you coming here to speak to us. I'm sure you have a very full docket, quite literally, but we really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak.
Thank you. I'm so happy for the invitation. I will always come to talk to you all, always. So thank you for inviting me. It's exciting
No
kind of time right now because so much is getting proposed. So it's cool.
Yeah. All right, we'll give Representative Gilchrist another minute to hop on, and then we'll get started with you guys. We finished our business, so we're just kind of waiting for everybody to hop on, so it's perfect. Very efficient.
For some of the, hey, Dominic. For some of the new members, Dominique is the reason why we actually were able to reinstate this commission. She went up to the mayor, it had been stagnant for over 20 years and got it back up and running. So we owe you that. Thank you, Dominique.
Hi, Sharon, and thank you. I'm going to make a slight correction to the record. It is because of Sharon and myself and a couple other people. So I appreciate that, but giving you flowers because it was a team effort. We made this happen.
Thank you.
Good evening, Representative Gilchrist. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. All right. So I will welcome our chair unfortunately got pulled out of town for a business lecture that she couldn't get out of. She tried everything possible up until the 11th hour, but she couldn't get out of it. So I will be kind of leading it here. My name is Shannon O'Toole Janderko. I am the co-chair along with Yvonne. We really welcome you and thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us tonight. And I believe you were sent these questions in advance, so hopefully we're not catching you off guard, but just some things that we would like to hear about what you'll be working on in this session. What priorities are on the table this year when it comes to gender equity centered policy?
Great question. You want me to just jump right in?
Sure.
Oh, okay, wonderful. So a few things. And when we're talking about gender equity, I mean, I think it does cross many lines, right? And so I do chair the Human Services Committee, and one of the top priorities this year will be increasing Medicaid rates. So people are usually surprised to hear that about a third of Connecticut residents receive their health care through Medicaid. And the rates, which is the amount that we pay providers, hasn't been increased for some providers since 2007. And even in 2007, they were being paid 57% of 2007 rates. So what that's doing is twofold. It is an access issue. So folks are struggling to be able to access the healthcare they need. And then it's also a workforce issue. We are not paying all different types of medical providers for the care that they provide. Then more in the traditional bucket of gender issues, I continue to co-chair the Reproductive Rights Caucus at the Connecticut General Assembly, and we have a number of proposals to strengthen provider and patient protections. We'll be looking at, again, funding primarily for Medicaid for Planned Parenthood. Based on what happened with the last Trump administration, I'm about 99% sure, you can never say 100, right? 99% sure that Title 10 funds will be, Planned Parenthood will be removed from Title 10 funding. And so they're going to be hard hit, and they are the largest provider of reproductive health care in the state of Connecticut. So we'll be looking to shore up some funding for them. I also continue to chair the endometriosis working group. And so endometriosis impacts 1 in 10 individuals with a uterus, and yet it takes about 10 years on average to get a diagnosis. We're the first state to establish a biorepository, which is a partnership between UConn Health and Jackson Laboratory. And they've been now working for 2 years and have been collecting samples from individuals with endometriosis, and are now expanding that to other hospitals in the state to be able to collect those samples, which are allowing researchers to study potential diagnostic tools and treatments. And so they had been funded in our 2-year budget, and so we're looking to continue and expand on that funding. And then there's going to be a number of proposals regarding sexual assault, domestic violence, and human trafficking. And I can get more into the weeds on some of those, but I'll stop there because I know Representative Johnson is here too.
Hey, Rep. Gilchrist. In addition to your leadership on all these committees and task forces, it's just so great to be here with you, because I just I know working with you has been amazing the past few years, couple of years, seeing how we can make sure that these policies particularly help women who are most vulnerable. And in that line of thought, I would add that we have some proposals I've heard, and while we do have a bipartisan women's caucus, we haven't yet fully organized yet because we've just started, got sworn in like not even a week ago. But I've heard that there will be some movement potentially on a bill to ban FGMC, female genital mutilation, but did not survive last session. Then as well, I think childcare obviously is a really important priority for me, but I think early childhood education and childcare will be priorities, and especially how we're going to fund the Early Childhood and Childcare Trust. I think is going to be a priority bill for the House. It's been assigned a bill number already. I believe it's 5002. Don't quote me, but that means it's a high priority. So 1 through 4 are the priorities, it seems right now. So that is to say that childcare and early childhood education are going to be very prominent. And I think in terms of gender equity, we kind of all can connect the dots about why that would be so important, particularly for working moms and other women who want to get back into the workforce. And lastly, intersectionality on all these issues, obviously. So there's going to be a Black Maternal Health Caucus that will be putting forward priorities, as I understand it, from Rep. Belton, who I know is your vice chair on human on public health. I apologize. Yeah. They have a big priority for a lactation bill. Did that fail last year, Rep. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. So bringing it back, hopefully we can get over the finish line. And that's fundamentally to make sure lactation consultants, as I remember correctly, can be licensed appropriately, and then given the kind of their expertise can be seen as a valuable contribution that already is. So I know you spoke passionately about it on the floor. So
yeah, that issue to what's interesting. So there's different types of lactation consultants, and an IBCLC is kind of the highest credentialing you can get. It keeps getting caught up in this debate as if we're trying to exclude folks from being in the lactation consultant field, but we're not. What's happening currently is because we don't recognize IBCLCs in state statute, Medicaid can't cover them. So the issue is the only folks who can access that high level of lactation consultant are folks who can pay out of pocket. But it got caught up in this debate as if we were trying to limit who can participate in the field of lactation consultants. And then a weird debate about women not needing lactation consultants, but that's what I shot down. Yeah.
Yes, I remember that moment very much. That was, I guess if we could go viral in the House of Representatives, that would be it, right? So, yeah. And I'm sure there are other things. I know there'll be other things. You know, we have till Friday this week as individual legislators to propose bills, and then the committees themselves will propose bills. So this is just kind of the sense that I'm getting of what's out there, but there will be much more. And I know, as in years past, the Bipartisan Women's Caucus has gotten behind certain bills, even kind of championed some themselves. So we'll kind of wait and see at the agenda there, but it will be forthcoming.
Great. Okay. Our next question, thank you both. That was very, very good start. Specifically, what are some ways that the Connecticut legislature is continuing to act to protect reproductive health care rights in the state? Is the Connecticut legislature considering a state constitutional amendment to more permanent protection of these rights?
Great. Do you want me to jump in?
I would let you jump in first as literally chair of this caucus. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to rattle off a bunch of things that we're talking through because yes, we continue to prioritize access to all reproductive health care, including abortion. Like I mentioned already, Medicaid funding will be instrumental in two regards, in family planning. And what's interesting there is currently, again, we'll have to see what happens federally, but when it comes to Medicaid, that is a 90% match from the federal government. So we actually get a big bang for our buck when we invest in family planning. But again, those rates have been woefully low. So we want to increase those rates. And then also in the state of Connecticut, we do allow individuals on Medicaid to access abortion. That is entirely state funded though, because there's the Hyde Amendment is a federal amendment that doesn't allow federal funding to be spent on abortion. Those rates are also low. So we want to increase those rates. We're also under the category of patient and provider protection. I don't know if folks saw in the news, there had been a Supreme Court case about, I'm forgetting which state it was, but an individual arrived at an emergency room and wasn't given the care they needed. And unfortunately, we're hearing about many of these stories across the country. And so we want to codify what's called EMTALA, which for many of us is just a thing we've all understood that if you show up to a hospital and you need emergency care, you get it. But we want to go a little bit further to ensure protections for an individual who arrives with a reproductive healthcare complication, that they would receive the emergency care they need. A lot of people say, why would we need this in Connecticut? But we do have some religiously affiliated hospitals. And so we want to make that clear for the providers, what they can and cannot do. Right now, they've let us know it's not very clear. We also would be expanding the SHIELD law that we had passed in a prior session, now based on what we've learned in other states, including protections for providers who provide telehealth to individuals in other states. And we want to implement a federal non-cooperation clause so that if individuals in other states are looking to ban things on our behalf, we would not comply. Like we wouldn't send information their way. We just want to strengthen that piece. Additionally, a few more. A bill I've been working on for a while that the caucus has been working on is equitable fertility care. So in the state of Connecticut, we currently have an infertility model. So we require private insurance to cover infertility. We want to change to a fertility model so that individuals in the LGBTQ community and single women can access fertility care. And we want Medicaid to cover that. Additionally, the population this helps are folks who are experiencing the potential of infertility because of a health condition like endometriosis. And right now, the law really isn't clear. It does speak specifically to cancer, but if there's an individual who has Medicaid and has cancer, they cannot protect their fertility going forward. And so we want to make that more equitable. And I think I will stop there. And then, actually, constitutional amendment. Here's my take on that. So if we were to move in that direction, we support it. We support, though, a broader initiative which would protect the rights of the LGBTQ community as well. There's been, the Reproductive Rights Caucus has not led the charge for a constitutional amendment because in Connecticut, we do have a state equal rights amendment. So the ERA, we have a state ERA. And years ago, when the debate was happening over Medicaid covering abortion, the state ERA was used to argue that it needed to. And so there is precedent legally in the state of Connecticut that our Constitution already protects abortion access. And because of everything that's going on in this country, it's been the advice of advocates, pro-choice advocates, that we would likely not get a lot of federal advocacy support if we were to move in the direction of an amendment. And it, unfortunately, the opposition probably would. So that's one piece. Now, okay, maybe, maybe not. If we do want to move in the direction of a constitutional amendment, and there's likely going to be a bill proposed, then again, there's two kind of caveats to this. We want to expand equal right protections to a diversity of individuals. If we're opening it up, we should do that. And our definition of abortion that's currently in state statute actually doesn't allow for abortions later in pregnancy. And so individuals, we constantly talk about, which we are proud of, that Connecticut is a place folks can come to access abortion. But if you need an abortion later in pregnancy because of a health related concern or your life, you actually have to go currently to New York. So we'd want to have that debate. And as you can potentially imagine, that would also be a challenging debate.
And I'll co-sign what Rep. Gilchrist said about the constitutional amendment. In terms of my thinking, it's quite similar. I'll speak from a perspective of being a member of the LGBTQ plus caucus, wherein obviously the community would feel strongly to be included if it were to move forward and not to be used as a bargaining chip, lack of a better word, to be left out. But I'll also say that I've been in conversations with people in the community where perhaps the advocates are changing their minds about the possibility of this being something that could be supported, given what the incoming federal administration may do, that could deeply change the foundation of LGBTQ rights in the country. So I'll say it this way. We want to make sure nothing is about us without us, but we also want to be sure that we're not kind of thrown under the bus. So there's that piece of it. And even more frankly, I've often thought, well, I'm no lawyer, I think a constitutional amendment to right to privacy would cover more things, right? For example, making sure we access to contraceptives, right? All of the Supreme Court cases that are built off of from Griswold v. Connecticut on, or, are dependent on a certain interpretation of the Constitution. And if that starts falling, if the domino effect starts, what are we going to be able to do in our state constitution to make sure that that remains our law here? And these are huge questions. So the other thing, I'll leave it at this because we just don't know yet. I would hate for certain communities who would otherwise be allied to start being inadvertently put in contest with each other in terms of pitted against each other for rights. That's just, it never really feels like that's a good way to move forward as far as I'm concerned. So I'll leave it at that. But that will be more, we will find out. Stay tuned.
Okay. With mass deportations expected by our new presidential administration, can you tell us what state resources are available to assist mothers and families who may be impacted? And should we expect any bills or legislation to help protect this community?
That is a great question.
Here's a really good question. I've heard potential legislation coming through certain committees. I don't want to say which because I'm not quite sure yet. we were at Building One Community in Stamford, a bunch of area legislators from Fairfield County not too long ago. And out of that conversation, I think is some movement on some legislation specifically to this point. That's in the works. I can tell you too that we've had ongoing conversations, and I'll defer to you, Rep. Gilchrist, about access to Husky for All for particularly young people whose status is undocumented. Yeah, I don't know if the sense is like holding the line because we have been more forward thinking in this state, but
I would anticipate that, again, sadly, similarly to the first go round with the Trump administration, we will see like that sanctuary designation where, and what that meant was that no local resources would be used to assist ICE. So I think we will see that again. Now, what will the federal government do in terms of punishing us with funding? I think that is where they're going to come. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I've also had some conversations with some school professionals who are fearful because I guess on day one, unfortunately, the Trump administration could, like right now, if you remember again, that first go round, churches, folks would kind of sadly, we're having to hide out in churches. Well, schools are designated a place where ICE cannot enter currently. And so there is this fear. And so maybe the state could step in and interfere there if they do, in fact, go so far as to do that. There's also proposals tangentially, but it connected with, we protected librarians, but now there's a proposal to protect public school librarians in terms of the resources that they make available. When it comes to Husky, so Husky is the interchangeable word for Medicaid in this state. We love calling everything Husky because of UConn. So Medicaid, we have a law that allows individuals who are undocumented to access Medicaid. Now, it's certain populations. We have currently moved it up to anyone under the age of 15, although here's the caveat, so stay with me. You then are grandfathered until 18. So if you enroll, so if there could be now a 16-year-old or 17-year-old receiving Medicaid. We also have Medicaid coverage for pregnant and postpartum undocumented individuals. We have been having conversations with the Department of Social Services to ensure that that data remains protected and cannot in any way be used by federal agencies.
and just to back to a point Rep. Gilchrist made that really struck me was I think that we have heard from community members. I know all of our colleagues across the state. I talked to a lot of folks whose constituents have LGBTQ plus kids, constituents who have mixed document like status families. And the concern is, how will ICE manifest in their communities should the Trump administration seek to really try to come into states, especially like ours, I guess, to make political points about kind of how far they're willing to go to make people afraid and also potentially deport them. So the thought about like what happens if ICE shows up outside our schools but they can't go in. These are all conversations I know are happening up in Hartford in terms of being proactively reactive once January 20th and 21st happens. We've had in Norwalk, I know it's happening elsewhere, community conversations about this. So that's why these forums are so helpful, because if folks are watching tonight, to reach out. I mean, this is more Norwalk centered audience, but like to make sure to always reach out to us as your delegation. Because if we can't find an answer, we'll talk with someone like Rep. Gilchrist who could, or somebody in our agencies at the state level who can find out information as things evolve.
Great, thank you both very much. Okay, a little bit easier. We're just gonna open it up to what's the best way for our commission and for individuals watching to advocate and keep up to date on any bills that you're working on.
Well, I was gonna say, and then I'll pass it off to you. Fundamentally, if you feel strongly about any issue, now is the best time to talk to your state rep and state senator. because we are literally able to propose bills till this Friday individually, and we can advocate ongoing through this process with committee chairs. And in many ways, I feel like a bill is like a campaign. Like you've really got to see it through at all these so many ways in the process where it could make its way forward or not. So your voice always is important. So you could testify at a public hearing, and your legislators should also have they have teams, and you can, that they should be able to be somebody who can help you get on Zoom or even come up to the Capitol. Lastly, we have, it's kind of a wonky system, but there's like cga.ct.gov, and there's technically a bill tracker. So if you're really good at figuring out complicated database, I mean, I just find it a little harder to use than it should, but that's it, right? I mean, there's a lot of data, but you can track individual bills. You can run searches for bills with certain keywords. Let's say you really want to help beagles, and you want to see if there are any bills about them. Just you can find that out. I just say that because I'm trying to work on a bill right now about animal adoption. So, but I'll give it to Rhett Gilchrist, who probably has a way more succinct way to get involved than I just gave you.
Well, no, I would echo, certainly reach out to your own legislators, but also, those of us working on issues you care about. And I think a lot of people don't realize when it is state government, like we're answering our emails, you could also tag us or send us messages on social media. We're the people on our own social media, so it's us. And then I agree, the bill tracking, no offense to CGA's website, but it's a little wonky. So what I always suggest is if there's a topic you're really interested in, since we discussed it, let's say it is abortion access. If you Google Connecticut abortion advocacy, inevitably an advocacy organization in the state is going to pop up. They're on social media, they have an email list, and they'll be tracking bills. And so by you, participating again on their social media or getting their emails, they'll keep you posted on opportunities to testify, to send information to legislators.
Okay, that's it for our questions. That's for our formal questions. Sorry, if any of the commissioners had any follow-up questions that they would like to ask. Anybody?
I will say hello. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your evenings. I know it's been a busy time, and you're tired. It's kind of a follow-up question, and Dominique, I talked to you about this, but any updates on any upcoming bills or interest in like digital protections for young people? I'm thinking of girls and the data that we have, the impact of social media on mental health of young people.
Yes, hey Sarah, I know that is something we've definitely talked about, and it reminded me last when we did our Norwalk League of Women Voters Forum, the AI bill came up when we talked about that. I spoke specifically to the provisions about deep fakes in them and the exploitative potential there that, the high school students here in Norwalk were really advocating for that bill. I think data privacy and consumer protection are going to be priorities. I've already seen some of the Senate priority. Like if you search on cga.ct.gov, the Senate bills like 1 through 9, at least a couple of them deal with consumer protection and privacy. So I'm hoping we'll have some movement there. And then I think mental health is this ongoing. We're still talking about how we can better fund like mental health resources, and the banning of cell phones is becoming really prominent. I think the education committee is going to be really focusing on that. So I assume that's also going to really be part of this, because I know we've talked about it. It's like you've got to work on all these different fronts. So in terms of what I've heard, that is, I think, the best of my knowledge of what's going to be happening. But I think these are going to be really important issues that we hear from people about. I know we've talked about you testifying because I know you have expertise as in your professional life on these issues. So yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I wouldn't just encourage you both to well, Dominique, I've told you about all the different lenses, but when it comes to digital protections or digital privacy, specifically for those under 18, and there's no real like firewall for children that age, and it really impacts them differently based on their gender identity, sexual identity. And so, I mean, to me, it seems like a low hanging fruit if there is already interest in this, like for the overall population, to bake into it some protections for younger folks too.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll bring that back.
For sure. Yeah, didn't Australia just ban social media for, is that right? Yeah. Yeah. There's a movement. Thank you. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
I think Chantel's talking. Chantel, you're on mute. Nope, never gets old, right?
I am talking on mute. I just wanted to thank Representative Gilchrist. Is that the name? Gilchrist. Nice.
Think
Provide
Chantel.
to patients in need, because it's what we receive from is too low. That's a big problem in the community in healthcare. So thank you for your advocacy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you both so much. We know you're very, very busy with just starting, and I'm sure with the Friday deadline of everything that you're working on, we really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. And we look forward to hearing from you. If there's something we can help you with, please let us know, and we will do what we can on our end too. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Be well. Good night.
Thank you for coming. Good night.
All right, so as far we went through our agenda as well, so unless there's anything else to discuss, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay. Second? Great. Thank you very much, everyone. That was very informative. And thank you, Sharon, for getting that all to come together. That was great to have them here.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you,
so
my pleasure.
much, Sharon.
And you helped me, Emma. Thank you so much. And Yvonne. So teamwork makes the dream work. All right, folks.
Yeah,
Aye.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
I
everybody.
All
second.
right, great.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.